Welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast, Vibey Vibes edition. Boys, we won. I feel like it was a week ago, but it was just a couple days ago. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Parker, how you doing?
Fine. I was three time zones away when that game was going on. Just out on an island in the middle of the Atlantic. So I didn't get to watch the match because I was in back to back to back to back meetings all day. Um, it's been a weird 10 days. I've been a lot of places. I've been on a lot of planes. I haven't slept much at all. But all things considered, we're alive. We're still fighting. Um, we have alcohol for to get through the hard times sometimes, and sometimes you need it more than others. And yeah, I just got back today from little little halfway meeting point and drove to Nebraska and met up with Carolyn's folks and just rented an Airbnb for the weekend, which was nice and relaxing. And little man got to just be passed around, and I didn't have to be on like primary care duty, which was kind of nice for a few hours. But yeah, I'm just like you guys know me. I'm a homebody. I travel a lot for work, but I like consistency and I like being home. So I got a week full of that this week. So I'm just really excited. Looking forward to like cooking and just getting shit done here. Which reminds me, I don't think I've told you boys, but I've got a brisket that's curing for pastrami in the fridge. And it's been curing for 3 weeks. So I get to fire that up this week and then eat some and vacuum seal the others and put it away. So, uh, open invite anytime you guys want to come over. I know it's quite the distance, but you're welcome anytime, and there will be pastrami in the freezer for you. So, see you soon, Matt. Man, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Just recovering from all of the wintertime illnesses. So I finally got one. I've been kind of skating by, especially with everything that's been going on with Miles and everything that he, contracts at daycare. I've been skating by. My wife not as much, but me all good. And then this one finally crept up on Thursday. So yeah, just dealing with that and just constant work. Just staying busy. Took my Christmas lights down, and before anybody judges me, I live in Wisconsin. It's fucking cold and it snows. I don't want to be out there when it's cold and snowy trying to take down Christmas lights from my gutters on a ladder. So I used today as that option. It was relatively nice out. So I went up, got everything done, taken care of, organized all that stuff, and yeah, and then followed up with a lovely dinner with the Collins family at Fixture Pizza in Milwaukee. If you ever have the chance, highly recommend it. And the boys got their pizza and we let the ladies get their own because there was about to be World War III started over pineapple on pizza. So we just said we're just gonna do our own thing and you ladies can do your thing. All in all though, it's good. We're here. Everybody's back. Super excited. Collins, how are things with you?
Yeah, check us out on social media at Flag Down Pod. Vote in the poll. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no? Um, no, all good. All good. It's good. Like you said, and have everybody back. Been a while since we've done a three-person pod. It's interesting. So excited for that. But Chelsea won. Baseball's back. My son had a basketball tournament this weekend. It was a good weekend, good sports weekend. Um, but no, happy to finish it out here with you guys. But like I said, 4-0. Well, I didn't say 4-0, but we did win 4-0. Couple of I don't think it's really worth it to talk about the match itself because you're playing potentially the worst side in Premier League history. And we'll get to that part in just a little bit. But match specifics aren't really important in this one. I think it's the pre and post game kind of fan reaction that deserve the talking points. So build up to this one. About 100-person protest outside of Stamford Bridge, according to reports. Uh, yeah, throwing monopoly money at pictures and epithets of Todd Bowley calling for Clear Lake and Bowley to sell. Also mentions of Bowley running a sex trafficking ring, which I thought was interesting. And then Bowley, of course, has his speaks at the London Financial Conference, whatever it is, about 3 days later. I don't even know where to start with this protest, but there was enough people there. It was covered enough that I feel like we need to talk about it. Yeah, I guess we'll start with the basic poll question here. Are you pro or anti this protest?
So protests in general, let's just start with that. I'm okay if you do it for a good reason or a reason that you truly stand behind. I'm fine with that. For me, it is the manner in which you protest that determines whether you go too far or not. I understand as a Chelsea fan and the position that we are in, where we have enjoyed success, at least for the three of us, for a long majority of our fandom. We have enjoyed that success. We know that feeling. We've gone through a very rough, I would say, 5 years, just with everything that's been going on. And so we're not in a familiar position. I don't mind the protest, but when you start, kind of, Collins, to your point, the sex trafficking thing, when you start going that route with stuff, when it starts to become things of that sensitive nature, that's where I have problems. Because that's not something to be taken lightly. And I think if fans are just using that to try and find an alternative reason outside of just the football, or the fact that, the owners aren't, performing or getting us back as quick as the fans would like, which, let's be honest, a good amount of Chelsea fans probably expected this takeover to happen and then we'd be back competing for titles the next year. Like, unrealistic, but again, that's what we're used to. I'm okay with speaking your mind and standing for a cause. I'm fine with that. Keep it about the football, I guess, would be my thing. If you're unhappy with ownership, fine. Like, if you expected more, or if you think things are going the wrong way and nobody's seeing signs of it, fine. Speak your mind. It seems a little drastic, this kind of early on, the first sign of weakness so far this season. But, like, again, do it. If you're going to protest, do it within reason. It's kind of my stance on the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm pro protest. I think it's better than just typing a bunch of stuff online, which is kind of what people default to. I think organizing a protest and actually showing up and having your voice heard is more effective than being a keyboard warrior. So I applaud the fans that took a stance, and right, wrong, or indifferent, they wanted their voice to be heard, and I think it was, because I think Bowley addressed the comments right at that financial meeting. So I think he addressed the fact that people were out there, so he at least got his attention, which I think is kind of proper. I don't think they do much. I don't think it has a ton of impact until people start protesting going to games, which it's going to take a lot of people to protest going to games, because from what I hear, tickets are very hard to come by, and there's a very high demand for tickets at Stamford Bridge. And when they go to away matches, they're not easy to get. So right now it feels like demand is much, much higher than supply. And so until protests can really impact dollars, I don't think that they're truly going to be impact some change for what the managers are. Managers aren't going to listen to, or owners, excuse me, aren't going to listen to what fans have to say about how to run a club. The sentiment of, we want to win and we don't think the way you're doing it is the way that Chelsea is probably heard, but they probably don't really care, because they have a long-term vision of how they're planning on doing things. And look, I think, we were in an unfortunate position to have our owner exit the way he did. He didn't voluntarily leave the club and sell it to an open bid. he was forced out. And because he was forced out and beloved and ran the club a certain way, there's always going to be people, wanting him to come back and run it and do things the way we work. Because, like you said, Matt, we were highly successful under that regime and that model. The fact of the matter is that the footballing world is completely different than it was back then, and you can't just bankroll a team um, to win the way that they used to. And there's financial fair play rules and a bunch of other rules in place now that prevent that style of just kind of taking over. So, look, I think we would be somewhat in this position regardless of who our owners are. Um, but yeah, I think people are fed up and frustrated. I don't think it's necessarily just this season in particular. I think it's since Clear Lake has come and there's been a lot of decisions made about talent and personnel and managers and you name it, and we haven't gotten the results. We're a results oriented business here, boys. So um I'm I guess I tip my cap to the people that go out there and at least try to do something. Um, because I can't join that protest here. The best I can do is try to talk about it here, and I will. So that's my 2 cents on that matter.
And I'm all for you know, protesting. I think of the Manchester United, where we were green and yellow instead, the historic colors of the club instead of the current. Um, I think about the protest at Arsenal maybe about a decade ago, um, as they were going through an ownership crisis. This one here was one of the most cringy things I think I've ever seen. Um, yeah, having the person, and I know this is how you get people to listen to you, and you get people to come along for the ride. Is you got to have a big social media presence, but having somebody with a semi-large social media presence throwing out accusations with no basis, Matt, like you said, bringing in just stupid stuff like, oh, he runs a sex trafficking ring. Okay, where are you getting that from? Where like, but these are the people organizing this. Is people who are in it for clicks, people who are in it for those little hearts on X, on Instagram, and then sheep following them. This is one of from in my perspective, one of the least necessary protests of all time. Again, this isn't the Glazers. This isn't a family sucking money out of the club and not reinvesting. And when they do reinvest in shitty players. This isn't who do we play in the FA Cup earlier this year? Who's running out of money? I can't think of the name of them, but Shrewsbury, possibly. I don't know. But there's been protests at that club because they literally have an owner that is running them into the ground, and then is going to either sell the property and redevelop it, or try to flip this club for a profit. And he's waiting to do that, putting no money into it. We've got owners who, well, yes, they have not communicated their plan, and we'll get to that later, Parker. It's pretty clear what their plan is: buy young talent, put young talent in there, and whether you agree with that or not, that's what they've done. And they've spent over $1 billion doing it. They're investing in this. They've invested in the women's team. They've invested in Strasbourg. They've added to the multi-club model. They're not sitting on their hands and hoping Chelsea make them a quick buck. They're putting real money into it. Again, everybody's got a right to do it, but this one was not needed in my mind, not necessary. Yeah, we're having a bad season, but we're right back to where we were pre-Bully era of fighting for top four. That's where we are right now. We're fifth. We're like a point off of fourth. We're fighting for top four. We're exactly where we were prior to. We took our dip. Now we're back at it. And honestly, if you're not for it, go support somebody else. This isn't a publicly owned club. It's not. Yeah, I know you got the Chelsea pitch owners, but it's sports. And if you're really that upset, go follow Brentford or Fulham, or walk down the road there. Go to Craven Cottage, support them. I don't get this one.
I think the people that have been following the club for a long time don't recognize the club that they see today for a lot of reasons, not just ownership changes, but the fabric of the club has changed a lot. And I think like the fact that you think it's irrelevant, that's fine, man. But I think like they're entitled to be pissed off about that. So like calling it cringy or whatever, that like again, it's fine if that's your take, but they still have the ability to share their thoughts and feelings. Like they have that right. They have that ability to do so. And again, like at least they went out and did something. Maybe it was for clicks or hearts or whatever, maybe. Or maybe they got fed up and finally tried to act and do something about it.
Yeah, and again, like I said, everybody's got a right to protest. In my mind, this just wasn't. This kind of invalidates any future ones we see. This one was a little early. We're not fighting relegation. We're not, again, we're not in Manchester United's position where somebody came in, bought it for a significant amount, and now they're, telling the waiters and waitresses at the restaurant at the stadium that they can't work there anymore because they're trying to cut costs. That this isn't that kind of stuff. This is, we're in fourth place. The owners have invested just about as much money as Roman Abramovich did, with a different recruitment strategy that again is pretty much, not directly laid out there, but it is out there. It's very clear what the plan is. I just don't understand it. And maybe it's the Americanness in me, but I look at a franchise like, or a franchise club. I know there's a difference there, but the Oakland Athletics, they were literally ran into the ground. Now they're playing 3 years in in Sacramento because they don't even have a stadium built yet. Those fans deserve to protest. Those fans have a right cause to protest. Protesting because your owners pumped a shit ton of money into the club and didn't invest it the way you want it invested. I don't get that.
So again, I'll kind of go back to my thing. Protest if you would like to. I'm all for it. If you have a reason that you firmly believe and that you stand behind, absolutely. Parks, I agree. Voices should be heard. I'm all for it. And Collins, I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but this is just how I'm interpreting all of this, just kind of sitting back and listening. I think the way that we got to the protest, I think is probably the biggest question, right? Was it really the fact that all these people, had their gripes or whatever, and they were all on the same page, or was it because of somebody with a mass media following posted something and then all their followers just kind of showed up, so on and so forth? I think it's a fair question, but again, if we look at this just as face value, there was a protest about the ownership. Fine. But to me, it seems a little bit early to sound the alarm on this because we weren't seeing this last year with Pochettino. And Collins, you'll back me on this. The run of form compared to Maresca this year was not even close as far as like how bad we were doing, right? If we look probably number to number, and like I guarantee you, Maresca has had a more impressive run to this point in the season compared to Pochettino.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Yeah.
going the other way.
No.
So I was looking it up.
Compared to Pochettino, Maresca has had a night and day difference of a run in his tenure. Like if that was the case, if this was really about the ownership group, then where was the protest last year? Right? Like that's kind of how I look at it. I think it's too early. Again, if they want to protest, go ahead and do it. I think if you're doing it to go after ownership, now does not seem like the right time to be doing it. It's just very interesting, the timing of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's an odd timing for all of this. I just think like our form since Boxing Day has been atrocious
Mhm.
this year. So the first 16 games of the season or 17 matches of the season, great, right? No one's batting an eye. It's like the second he has to deal with any adversity with some injuries and whatnot, and doesn't have a full squad. Now we have a absolutely atrocious run of form and drop points against teams that we shouldn't drop points against, and have a goal scoring problem, and you name it. So I think, again, I don't take it as like it's a this season that they're protesting against. I think it's the whole collection of now games, and it might have been this run of form, this 9 game stretch was the straw that broke the camel's back on triggering something like this, because it's all a part of the body of work that the owners kind of represent. So, but yeah, I think like your protest is a little bit more effective when you're sitting in 17th and you have more issues on the table to talk about. Whereas if you look at the status of the team and we're in 5th, no, I get it. I understand what you guys are saying. I just think it's like we were in 2nd, like 4 points off of Liverpool, and we're now in 5th. So it's been a shit run, and there's no way to like look at that with rosy colored glasses, because the teams that we played weren't all that great, and yeah, we still kind of fared pretty poorly in it. So, but
Yeah. No,
Like,
I'm with you. I think yeah, we have been dog shit for the last 2 months. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. It's and the way that I look at this is before Boxing Day, it was the Collins. I hate that I'm going to say this, but I will. It was the we're back,
mhm.
right? We're in second with this team, like we're back, and then all of a sudden we go on this bad run of form, and boom, it's like what the fuck happened? That's how I look at it. Is like it was just a matter of we did so good, we're back, like we're all good, and then all of a sudden this bad run of form hits, and we're like, well, what the hell happened? Like this is ridiculous. We were doing so well, and then we hit this bad run of form. This is unacceptable. Like let's I think there needs to be a little bit of a reset on trying to be realistic versus being a diehard. Like you're not going to win all 38 matches in a season. You're just not. It's unrealistic. Every team has had a bad run of form. I don't know if City's ownership group had protests when they were in their bad run of form. The timing of seems it seems like they did this protest at the most unnecessary time. Again, I'm fine with the protest. Like if you have your opinions, fine. But it's a lot more effective when you have a lot more to gripe about than just saying, "Hey, the last 2 months have been bad. Do something about it." Because that's what the perception kind of looks like, right? Yes, it could be, Parker, to your point, the entire body of work for Bully and the ownership group. It very well could be. But when you do it at this point, it looks like you're mad over sour grapes, right? It looks like you're just mad at the last 2 months.
Yeah, it
I think
and that was my perception of it. It comes off as, the rich kids are mad that soda is now $1.05 instead of $1. Yeah, Matt, like you said, it just entitled. It's Are we going to protest every time we go through a rough patch? Because if it happens in December like it does every single year, that's about 9 matches. Play a crap ton of matches in December. This year we just happened to get through it, and the fixtures spread out a little bit. So, like I said, this kind of ruins, in my mind, the validity of just about every protest after this, if there were to be one. So after the match, though, the question came up again. We won 4-0. Good vibes. Can we really have won this match? What would the score have to be for this one to feel good?
yeah, I don't think there's a score. I think we're probably all in agreement here too. Like I don't think there was a score that would have let any of us feel like this was a real true win. Just, I mean, you mentioned Southampton being, potentially one of the worst teams in Premier League history. And their run of form has been horrible, and they've been just an absolute doormat for everybody. So look, I'm happy we won 4-0, because if we won 1-0 or 2-1, which would be even worse, like concede first or something, like that could have been bad. If there was a game, that would have been bad, but it wasn't. So like I guess I'm 6 out of 10 happy because it wasn't a game. Like I was kind of following along on the scores, and it didn't seem like it was much of a match. So yeah, I guess I could have felt worse with the win.
It's a win. It's 3 points. At this club in its current form, that's very hard to come by. I don't care who it's against. How many times have we sat here on a Sunday night and potted about, wow, Charity FC strikes again? The script was set for us to essentially lose this game. That's how I look at it. Regardless of, yes, Southampton's been historically atrocious in the league this season. How many times has something like that popped up? I'll bring up the Ipswich game. Who in their right mind thought Ipswich had a chance against us? Honestly, if you were to ask me before the match, I would have said, yeah, I could see Southampton beating us. Honestly, I could have. Just because that's been the MO for Chelsea for a while, is we lose to the teams, or we drop points to the teams that we should easily beat. I see it for what it is. It's a shutout performance for a team that has had a very suspect defense and goalkeeping issues. We scored 4 goals for, again, a team that has had issues putting the ball in the back of the net. And we got our 3 points for a team that has been struggling to get points out of their last 9 matches. It's 3 points. It's a win. It on paper, it addresses everything that we've been talking about, that we've been having problems with over this bad run of form. At this point, I'll take it for what it is.
Yeah, I was the same way. Matt, I hate how much I'm agreeing with you on this pod. 3 points is 3 points. Doesn't matter how you get it. You guys know me. I was asking if Chelsea's back.
And that's why we take that phrase away from you. I blame this poor run of form solely on you, Collins.
You can come after the hosting duties then.
Hard pass.
But you walk into the weekend with a good feeling. That's kind of the barometer for me with Chelsea at the moment. Is my weekend good, or is my weekend ruined? Or my Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, or any of that stuff. But I knew as I saw the scores, coming across, and clips and highlights, and there is no score that would have made this a win in the majority of Chelsea fans' minds. You can win 20-0, and people would say, "Oh, you're playing Southampton."
Southampton fans would say you're playing Southampton.
Exactly. Leslie Ugochukwu would say that. They could lose 20-0, and people say, "Oh, it's Chelsea." There's no way for Chelsea to win this match in the eyes of Chelsea fans, and it's not a great indictment of where we are in terms of the season. But it is sad that no one is going to get credit for picking up 3 points in this one. I will say, I laughed because I enjoyed the camaraderie vibe of this team. Levi Colwill and company shushing the crowd when we would score. The home crowd, that was, I don't understand it, but I'm glad that it unified them as a team seemingly in this one. So I'll give them credit for that. That was a win for me.
Also, I think the biggest and probably least talked about win was Enzo Fernandez forcing Cucurella to do his penguin dance goal celebration. That I think for me was the highlight.
Well, let's real quick flip to a topic that I didn't put on your guys' docket here. But Matt, you just mentioned 2 out of the 4 players in question, at least in my mind. We've got what, 13 games left, something like that. I know we made our preseason predictions, but let's make our 25/38 prediction. Who is your player of the season?
I'll start. Mine's still Cole Palmer. Palmer is by far and away the goal scorer. I think he has like 17 goals this year for us in the Premier League. He's been Mr. Reliable. He's bailed us out of a lot of situations. He's kept us in matches. And I feel like even when he doesn't score, he's had a good amount of assists this year as well. And when he doesn't score an assist, he's still an active member of our team that like still creates positive chances, positive movements, momentum going forward. He's played damn near every match. He hasn't, knock on wood, been injury prone this year for us. He's been very consistent. So yeah, I know like in his attacking nature, you're going to grade him on goals and assists. If you grade him on just goals and assists, he's done fantastically well. If it's just the numbers that you're looking for there, I think he's done fantastically well. And I think the form of consistency that he's brought to the table has been pretty lights out. So he's been mine.
Collins, what say you?
I'm torn. I think skill wise, Palmer is the best player we have. I don't think he's had the best season. I'm torn between Caicedo and Cucurella. Caicedo has been easily one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfielder in the league this season. Again, we haven't talked about his price tag once. No one has. He is a justified $120 million signing. That is crazy based on this season, because last year there were questions. That being said, Mark Cucurella and his fucking penguin dance. I love it. He is Marcus Alonso regen. He is having a fantastic year. And you talk about a guy who's been consistent for the entire season. There's been virtually no hiccups out of Mark Cucurella. That being said, our defense hasn't been great. So I go Caicedo.
I think if you take out the Puma cleats for Cucurella, then it's been damn near perfection out of him this season.
Well, good shout.
So I like all 3 names that have been thrown out, and I think they all have legitimate reasons. So like with that, it's hard for me to pick one. Like I want to go and pick somebody different, but there's not really a huge talent pool to choose from when you look across our team. Not to say there's not talent, it's just who consistently shows that talent game in and game out. I think for me, I would take Caicedo strictly for the fact that it is consistent. And Parker, it kind of goes against your point about Palmer. Like if you were to look at it just numbers wise, right? Caicedo is not a numbers guy. We know that. That's not his role, right? But even with his role, he has still been assisting on goals. And I think the way that I think he handles when we do have that 3-person rotation of Caicedo, Enzo, and Lavia, when Lavia is healthy, I think Caicedo adjusts to that the best out of the 3. I think where Enzo is, again, we've had this conversation. I think where Enzo is playing so high up the pitch, I think is kind of I think it hurts him more than it actually helps him. But Caicedo, game in, game out, you know what you're getting out of him, and he does it at the same level every single match. With I don't see like really any dip in form, throughout the season. So I would say Caicedo.
God, Parker, you can't ever not be on the pod again. That dynamic shifted last week. That's 3 for 3, Matt.
Which is funny because
don't worry, it won't be for long, I'm sure.
Caicedo is usually my guy too. Like I love Caicedo. I've shouted his name more than a lot of people. So I think Caicedo is a super, super, super close second. And I think he's incredibly valuable for us. It's funny because You talk about the price tag, Collins. It's like no one talks about Cole Palmer's price tag either, but it was ridiculously low. Like I it's hilarious how low his price tag is. It's hilarious how low his wages were the first year. And I got bumped up real quick because guess what? He deserved it. He earned it. Um, I know his run of form hasn't been as good recently, just like his numbers wise hasn't been as good. But look, I think they're a coin flip. Those two, I think they're both been fantastic. No wrong answer.
I do think another honorable mention needs to go to Enzo Fernandez's marital issues, because he since then has been a completely different player. Another player we don't talk about his price tag. Matt, yeah, maybe he's playing a little bit out of position, but he's been involved with shooty boots. He's been involved with assists, and the dude's got passion. And I know passion doesn't win you player of the season, but I enjoy watching a fired up Enzo.
Here's some fun stats on both of these guys. Ready? So I looked up Caicedo and I'm just gonna highlight some of his highlights, for lack of better terms. Passes completed, he's in the 84th percentile. Completion percentage, he's in the 85th percentile. Tackles, he's in the 87th. Interception, he's in the 86th. And blocks, he's in the 90th percentile. So pretty damn good in that, where you would want like a defensive holding midfielder to be. Palmer, on the other hand, not as good at those things. Non-penalty goals, he's in the 92nd percentile. Uh, NPXG, non-penalty goal XG, he's in the 96th percentile. Shots total, he's in the 99th. Assists, he's in the 73rd percentile. Expected assisted goals, he's in the 94th percentile. NPG plus assists, so expected goals plus expected assists per game, 97th percentile. Shot creating actions, 96th percentile. Progressive passes in the 90th percentile. Like, he is lighting the world on fire for a lot of those stats, man. But Caicedo, where we need him to be, he's also doing the things we need him to do.
Fucking stats.
I like those advanced stats. They're telling when you can compare them percentile wise.
I will say, just a side note, Matt, you did swing me, I swung to your side on the XG argument. It actually came in this match here with Cole Palmer. Missed about 3 sitters. If you look at his XG for the match, it's pretty high. Like, for a one match sample, it's pretty high. And no, he didn't have a goal. So this is what did it for me. I'm an eye test guy now.
It pays dividends because you actually see the results.
All right. So last thing we're gonna do. I don't have a fancy name for it, but it's a grid. I'm sure you've seen it floating around. If you're on Reddit, I've seen it for just about every team in every league in every country. Across the top, you have the categories of good player, average player, bad player. And going down the side, it's beloved by fans, mixed feelings, and hated. And so the 9 corresponding spots. You pick a player, and the first one that I did was for the Milwaukee Brewers, and the Milwaukee Brewers have a very short history compared to that of Chelsea. So I think it's a little bit more interesting with a club that's next year going to be 120 years old. But boys, I thought maybe we could go through maybe a row every week here. Good players. Next week we do average. Final week we do bad players. Then just kind of hash out and see where we as a podcast finish that grid.
Yeah, let's do it. You want to bring up an Excel sheet? I know we are a audio medium, but for us to see and look at, I think that my favorite, the top left of this grid is like can go 1,000 different ways. Like, there are a lot of people who are beloved by the club and great players. Like, you almost can't go wrong with that top left category. But I will just add that my interpretation was their stint at the club, because there are some great players that played for the club that didn't have good stints at Chelsea. And so I tried to categorize it as how I felt like their time was at Chelsea, but you can kind of interpret this a couple different ways.
All right. So where do you guys prefer that we start?
Let's do beloved.
All right. Players who are beloved, beloved. Just reading out of the Bible here. Great player, average player, and a bad player. Matt, I will let you pick where we start there.
I mean, for me, the great player, Aiden Hazard. I feel like that one is going to be unanimous.
Parker, I think you and me, when we were texting back and forth, had different answers on this one.
We did. I think Hazard's a great one. I'm just going to give sort of an honorable mention. I love Thiago Silva in that beloved one, so I'm just gonna throw that name out there for that one.
And I completely forgot where I went on this one. I can think of a couple. John Terry, absolutely. Frank Lampard, absolutely. Didier Drogba, absolutely. I, I might go Petr Cech on this one. Legend, probably the best keeper in Premier League history. And even when he was advising Marina in a front office role and people hated Marina, they love Petr Cech. I think that's where I got to go.
Like I said, I don't think you can go wrong on that one.
All right, well let's make a challenge out of it though. Let's see where we can. Let's see if we can get it down to one player. Is there anywhere you guys are willing to concede? I could go down to two of these from three, eliminating my own.
I was gonna say Hazard and Thiago for me feel right. I could
Are we just going with our three? Because if I'm looking at like a unanimous, then
Okay, who we got?
I think you look at a John Terry, or I'll float out another name. He might not be in this category. He might be in the next one, depending on how you look at him. But I think as a Chelsea player, Dave.
Ooh.
See, I've got Dave and average player.
Yeah, like I'm saying, that's where this gets fun.
Beloved average player. I have him in C2.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dave average.
I think he's a step below, like, here's this. I think he's a step below Ashley Cole and John Terry for Chelsea defenders. Branislav Ivanovic, you can throw that name in there. He's probably on par with Ivanovic skill-wise. Look, and I love Dave. Like I will shout Dave, but like Chelsea doesn't sign bad players, right? So we're grading this on a Chelsea curve. There are some names that like obviously like, but in the beloved bad category, like there's not too many bad people that we bring onto the club. We're a pretty high profile club here.
But so here would be my argument against that. You're also talking about the player who won every single title there is to win with Chelsea.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue as a top 5 defender in our lifetime. Obviously, we don't have access to watching 80 years of Chelsea history, but I can maybe think of Terry and Cole are above him. Absolutely. It's not a huge drop off to that next group. And he is tight on points with, maybe Gary Cahill, Ivanovic, maybe Carvalho, and top 5.
Yeah. So top 5 defender, but like, again, when I'm kind of grouping these, like he's not going to take, if Dave is on this list, he's not going to be in the great category for me. And he's not in the hated category. And he's not in the mixed feelings category. So if he's got to be, Dave's beloved to me.
Okay. So
he's either making it in average to bad, or for me, he's not on the list. Because there's better players. There's better players that are more beloved.
So Matt, you also mentioned John Terry. What if it was a spin-off or a spin-off of that between Terry and Lampard? Because God, Frank Lampard's another guy that people will not hate. Went to another club for the last 2 years of his career, and then came back, had a transfer ban, and came back a second time and lost 12 games in a row.
But we're not talking about a managerial career. We're talking about him as a player. So this is where now I start to. You guys can probably hear the gears spinning in my head right now. Like, does the amount that you're loved maybe hide some of the quote unquote great player aspects? So like Dave, I think is a perfect example. You can make the argument he is loved by Chelsea fans more than maybe some others. Does that put more weight on he should be in that category. Maybe he was not as great of a player, but maybe he's make the argument he's more loved. I'm curious about that.
Are you,
Or I'm just looking way too much into this for something that should be very simple, which is also a very likely possibility.
well, are you okay? I'm trying to follow that. Are you saying Frank Lampard wasn't a great player?
No,
Is that your
what I'm
argument?
saying, no, what I'm saying is like, so in the example of Dave, maybe he's like more loved than maybe some of the others. Like, yes, we all have Thiago Silva. He was there for 2 years, right? Dave was there for what? Or Thiago, sorry, for 4 years. Dave was there for what? Like
A long time.
12, something like that. Like he has a longer standing, so I think it's probably a little bit deeper. Um, but he might not have been as good as Thiago Silva. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like
Okay.
if somebody's still considered a great player, but maybe they're not as great as, you know, like a Hazard, right? I think we all would say that Hazard is probably the upper echelon of great players. Him, Drogba, right? If we're talking about that
We,
capacity.
we've done like the Mount Rushmore before.
Yeah.
And we've said Terry and Lampard are like locks. And then
Yep.
it's kind of like Hazard, Czech, and Drogba fight for the other two spots. That's kind of been our
Yeah.
agreed upon there.
Okay. I got you. I got you. But let me throw Parker. I just remembered what mine was looking and when you and I were going back and forth. Let me run this one by you just out of curiosity. N'Golo Kante. I can think of people who were mad at Hazard because he left. I can think of people who, me specifically, at the end were not a fan of Thiago Silva. Um, Czech, I can't really because I wasn't involved in a Chelsea community when he was here. It was kind of just me. Um, but N'Golo Kante, I don't know a single person who doesn't love N'Golo Kante, and he's one of the best midfielders of all time.
So I just brought this up because I think it's important to put things into context. N'Golo Kante made 190 appearances for Chelsea. Frank Lampard made 429. John Terry made 492. I think the captain leader legendness of John Terry and the fact that our team was built on that defense and he was the leader of that team. I think if I was trying to find a unanimous great beloved player, it's John Terry. As a steward of the club, the amount of appearances for 98 to 2017, like
I would second that. I think the only person who doesn't love him is Wayne Bridge.
Allegedly.
no, I think Wayne Bridge doesn't like him, period.
Okay, so one member of Wayne Bridges' household doesn't like John Terry. You really gonna split hairs over that?
When I went to the British Bulldog, they did a chant that I hadn't heard before, which is Mrs. Bridge is going down, going down, going down. Mrs. Bridge is going down on John Terry. And I damn near lost it, man. I damn near lost it. You can take that one to Highbury.
I'm clipping that. That's our new intro.
Oh, that's so good.
Oh, it might be the first time I make the intro without being like 7 beers deep.
So yeah, I think there's a couple ways to look at this is yes, we can have our own like who we think, but then unanimous, it might not be one of the three that we said. So I think we go with a unanimous after we just kind of hash out who would fit in what category.
Yeah, I think this is all a debate, right? Like this is all trying to figure out the most clear answer.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll
Pencil it in. We'll see how this looks.
we'll add, yeah, we'll put our three in there. We'll put what the unanimous is, and we'll also put a poll out. So again, check that out at Flag Down Pod. This is a good enough segment, I think, where we could push the next block to next week. Otherwise, we might be here for another 45 minutes.
No, let's keep going. Let's do it. I'm excited to get into this.
All right. Well, let's do that.
Average.
A beloved average player, and I already know where you guys are voting.
I'm saying Dave.
Matt,
So
you-
if it's my personal, so my own individual one, and Parks Dave, if Dave's your individual one, so be it. For me, I'll take Rudy. I'll take Rudiger.
The more I think about that one, the more that's a nice pick.
Solid pick.
He had a season and a half.
Where the man could do literally nothing wrong. Where shithousery was back to its peak.
And then a season and a half before that of being shit.
Well, just needed the right manager in place to give him a shot.
You guys are gonna love mine. It's Conor Gallagher. Not everybody loved him. I didn't, but most people did. And he is bang definition of average.
I can't argue that.
You could throw like Galadog, nice. Again, I'm just looking at this list. You could add like Marcus Alonso to that list, maybe.
God, no. What are you, nuts?
Was he a bad player?
He wasn't loved. Are you kidding me?
All right, there might be some mixed feelings there. Fair.
See the tiers again with a club that's got a history of 120 years. When I was thinking average player, I was not thinking, "Ooh, who's in that next tier of not great?" And so to see how you guys are interpreting that, I'm excited to see what you guys consider a bad player. But before we get to that, who do you think is the unanimous?
I think there's going to be a big drop off when we go to bad player, and we're going to be pulling a lot out of left field.
Well, the hard thing is like beloved bad player, like hated bad player is gonna be easy, but like beloved bad player, I think is hard because who have we rallied behind that it isn't up to standard or it wasn't up to what we thought we signed. So I think that's a really tricky category. Average player, I think because outside of elite, I think there's a contingent of beloved average players. But
Matt, do you have one?
So if we're again in cons, I think it's a great point. Like we're talking about not the upper echelon, right? We're not talking Gallagher bang average, right? We're talking the very good, not great.
Right. The Chelsea average.
Right. So for me, I think based on the conversation we had, I think Dave would be.
I think it's Dave or I think it's Gallagher. I like the Gallagher pick because I think Gallagher more represents
the average.
a good, not great player. And very many people liked Gallagher for one stint or another.
Yeah, I just feel like it's disrespecting Dave to put, and I feel like there's gonna be, we put this out on the internet, and our integrity is gonna be called into question, saying that Dave is average without context.
I think Gallagher makes sense.
All right, to the fun one. Bad player who is beloved. I'll start on this one. My interpretation of this was a bad player at Chelsea, not just a player who came up from the academy and then stumbled along in non-league for 20 years. So I went with a guy who frustrated the shit out of me, but I know was loved by everybody and people wanted him to stay, and that's Callum Hudson-Odoi. He just never. I think he had one assist in about 75 matches or something like that. That was his one stat. But man, people were pissed when we sold him. They thought that he could have taken over for any of our wingers at the time of sale. I know that now he probably he'd fit in just fine, but no, mine is Cho.
I like the Cho shout. And to be fair, you did your list first and I got to see it. I actually didn't want you to send yours through. I didn't tell you that, but I wanted to kind of independently do it without knowing what you picked. So I tried to be different everywhere I could. My pick is John Obi Mikel. And I'm going to say he was a beloved Chelsea player. I know podcast John Obi Mikel has ruffled some feathers, but again, a dude that he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th on our appearances list. He has 249 appearances for the club. He was considered our human victory, cigar of a player to put in to seal off matches. We loved seeing him out there. We cheered for him when he scored goals. Like there was specific John Obi Mikel cheers and chants that happened at pubs for him directly. He's kind of that like folk legend player. And I don't think anyone looked at him as a super threat. And when I'm looking at the contingent of Chelsea players. Again, there aren't a lot of bad people that had the support of the fans, and so he was a trooper that was there for quite some time. 2006 to 2016, so over 10 years, and people definitely clapped and cheered his name when he was out there.
All right. I'm gonna go a little deep into the banks here. Arguably one of our, you could call him maybe the colonel of the Lone Army, Victor Moses. I mean, the man was sent on loan more than any player should be allowed to. And when he did finally get his chance with Conte, okay, you saw what he could do. He wasn't anybody that was going to strike fear in anybody's hearts. He was, I'd say, slightly below average, but everybody loved him. Everybody wanted to see him get at least an opportunity with Chelsea because that was the joke. He had been loaned so many times. Victor Moses.
And I think anybody from that 20 teens, late 2000s loan army, I think is a good fit. Lucas Piazon, Kennedy. God, I mean, Kennedy came back and he was just a nobody who played like 4 matches, and people were still like, "Oh, re-sign Kennedy, bring him back."
Dude, Kennedy was my Twitter picture for like 8 years. I just don't. I don't think he was loved. I think he was liked.
He was remembered twice a year.
I feel like there are so many options for this category. But
I
again,
feel the exact opposite.
you have to go through like the memory bank to try and like find them, but they're out there. So like for me, what I was thinking was like, and these are, and Collins, you'll probably love this. Miralish, yeah, didn't really see what he did. You know, he falls into that category for me. Like that early 2010s, like anybody from that kind of squad. Ryan Bertrand.
Basically, any academy guy from about 2005 to about 2017, 2018.
I mean, the thing is, like, everybody, to me, I think everybody loved him, especially with his story about the Champions League, right? He stepped into that match with very limited play time and capacity and showed out.
If I were to go down my Rolodex and you just said, gun to your head, Parker, think of like your most loved Chelsea players, Ryan Bertrand isn't going to be the first 100 names out of my mouth. He's not. I might pick Wayne Bridge over.
That's because you get to sing the John Terry song.
Yeah, exactly. I like dudes like
Ramirez by proxy.
See, but I like dudes like Ramirez and Essien and like guys like that so much more than I liked any of those guys. And I know that they don't fit in the bad player category, but like I didn't, they were fine. See, that's where I have a lot of mixed feelings on people because of their time at Chelsea. High prospect and could have done something. Didn't love him, didn't hate him, but I just didn't love him.
I don't think he's necessarily a bad player. I don't think either of these players are necessarily bad, but they're not great. They're not average. At least their time at Chelsea.
They're Chelsea.
Yeah. Demba Ba and Samuel Eto'o. I don't remember people hating either of those two. They just kind of knew, like, all right, you're getting like a 39-year-old Samuel Eto'o, and okay, Demba Ba is Demba Ba. You're not getting anything out of him.
I love Eto'o.
Exactly.
I love Eto'o.
And who was his strike partner?
That's a different story as to why you love Eto'o. That has to do with something completely different. And the fact that he came to Chelsea after was just icing on the cake for you.
Gosh, I should know that. I don't, Collins.
Yeah, because that was the FIFA play for sure. Those two linking up. All right. All right. So do we have a consensus, do you think, on this one? If we were to ask 1,000 Chelsea fans, what do the vast majority of them come back with?
I don't know, but Samuel Eto'o has a son. He's 22 years old. sign this kid today. Etienne Eto'o.
Nice.
He emerges in La Liga.
Pure Weibo, by the way.
That's what it is. Good shout.
Weibo.
Weibo. That's neither here nor there.
I'd be fine. I personally lean more towards John Obi Mikel.
Yeah. I think if you're going Chelsea great, Chelsea average, Chelsea bad, I think Mikel is in there. And hey, maybe this podcast will see it and we'll
on.
Yeah.
I think like the fact that he was loved and he wasn't really even a starter much. Like he started some games, but he was a role player that like I don't know, stuck around for a long, long time. I think that fits the bill.
All right. Well, this will be a segment for the next couple weeks, and boys, I'm excited for next week when we talk about players who we have mixed feelings about.
This is gonna be that might be the full podcast column. There's gonna be a lot of names.
Oh, I got one for right in the heart of that board.
Great player, Jorginho.
Nope. Average player, mixed feelings. Oh, we're going to war, my friend.
All right. So make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Turn on those notifications so you know when next week's episode comes out. Boys, any closing thoughts?
No.
All right. Cheers.
Later, guys.
Cheers.